Okay, so here I am, just sitting here. The silence in this apartment is a living thing, a heavy blanket that suffocates you. It's been 3 days since Gabriel left, and I keep catching myself listening for the sound of his keys in the lock, a phantom limb of a habit I can't shake. I walked into the bedroom this morning and buried my face in his side of the bed, desperately trying to inhale the last traces of his aftershave. That stupid, woodsy one I bought him for Christmas. It's almost gone. Soon, the only thing that will smell like him in this place is my own memory. His side of the closet is a gaping wound of empty hangers. The toothbrush holder in the bathroom looks ridiculously lonely with just my pink one in it. Even that dog-eared copy of a sci-fi novel he was halfway through, the one he swore he'd finish this year, has vanished from the nightstand. He didn't scream, didn't throw things. He just erased himself from my life with a quiet, terrifying efficiency, like he was closing out a project that had failed. The only thing he left behind is the text message on my phone. I've read it so many times the words have burned themselves onto the back of my eyelids. I hope you find what you're really looking for, Serafina. The use of my full name was the first clue. He never called me Serafina. It was always Sira. That formality was colder than any curse he could have screamed. I can't reply, of course. Blocked on everything. How did it come to this? How did a perfect, stable, loving relationship just evaporate? It feels like I blinked and my entire world was dismantled, board by board. And the worst part? The absolute, gut-wrenching worst part is knowing I'm the one who handed him the screwdriver and told him where to start. It wasn't always like this. God, that's the part that's eating me alive. Our life together wasn't a dramatic, passionate roller coaster. It was a quiet, beautiful garden Gabriel had painstakingly cultivated for us. He was a physical therapist. His entire being was geared towards healing and patience. Just last month, I lost a major client at work and came home in a storm of self-pity and rage, ready to pick a fight with anyone, just to have an outlet. Instead of rising to the bait, Gabriel ran a bath for me, ordered my favorite takeout, and just let me vent for an hour. He didn't try to fix it, he just absorbed my chaos. And that kindness, that infuriating, saintly patience felt like a judgment. It was too perfect. 4 years before I met Gabriel, I was with a guy who just disappeared. One day we were planning a trip, the next his apartment was empty and my number was blocked. No fight, no explanation, just gone. That experience didn't just break my heart. It rewired my brain. I became a detective of my own potential doom. With Gabriel, I'd find myself checking his last seen on WhatsApp, analyzing the time between his texts, searching for the subtle shift that meant he was pulling away. There never was one, which only made me more suspicious. A little voice in the back of my mind, the one that feasted on my insecurities, whispered that this was all a facade. He's just biding his time. No one is this good. He'll leave you the second he finds someone better, someone less broken. The happier we were, the louder the voice got. I convinced myself that his calm was a lack of passion. Quiet love is polite love, and polite love can be turned off like a switch. But jealousy. Jealousy is ugly, it's primal, it's a gut reaction. You can't fake that. In my twisted, broken logic, his peace wasn't proof of love, it was proof of indifference. A screaming match, however, would be proof of investment. The plan was born from that toxic seed. The idea crystallized last week when my friend was complaining about her boyfriend getting possessive after she danced with someone at a club. And instead of sympathy, I felt a sick, sharp pang of envy. He's afraid to lose her, I thought. Gabriel isn't afraid of losing me, so I decided to manufacture a threat. And I chose Silas from my marketing team. Sweet, harmless Silas, who has a laminated photo of his rescue cat, Mittens, on his desk, and who once spent 10 minutes explaining the merits of different types of yarn to me. He was perfect because he was so obviously not a threat. He was just a prop. The plan was simple. I'd ask him for a drink at O'Malley's, our bar, the one Gabriel and I had our first date at. I'd make sure we were seen. I'd make sure it got back to Gabriel. I just needed to see him fight for me, just once. It was a controlled burn, I told myself. A small fire to clear out the dead wood of my doubt. I never considered that I was holding the match in a house made of gasoline. Executing the plan felt like directing a play where I was the star, writer, and a deeply compromised director. I chose O'Malley's on purpose, a deliberate twist of the knife. It was our place. The place where Gabriel and I had our first date, our 3-month anniversary, the place we went to celebrate his promotion. I could practically see the ghosts of us in every corner, laughing in the corner booth, kissing by the jukebox, and I was about to desecrate it. Every sip of my gin and tonic felt like an act of vandalism. I asked Silas out under the guise of picking his brain about a new campaign, a lie so flimsy I was surprised he bought it. He agreed, a little too eagerly, his face lighting up in a way that should have registered as a warning sign. It didn't, I was too focused on the stagecraft. I even told my friend Amelia to casually take a picture if she saw us and post it to her Instagram story. Just for fun, I'd said, make it look candid. I was orchestrating my own downfall with the precision of a wedding planner. At the bar, I slipped into my role. I leaned in when Silas spoke, laughed a little too loudly at his jokes, touched his arm in that way that means everything and nothing. And a strange, dangerous thing happened. The performance started to feel real. Silas, away from the fluorescent lights of the office, was actually charming. He asked about my passion for vintage film, a hobby Gabriel found endearing but didn't share. Silas, it turned out, was a huge fan. He complimented a campaign idea I'd pitched last week, one Gabriel just nodded at while scrolling through his phone. "You're really brilliant, you know that?" Silas said, his eyes wide with genuine admiration. And that little ego stroke, that tiny hit of external validation from someone new, felt like a drug. I was performing the part of a woman on an exciting first date, and the thrill of it, the novelty, the validation in a stranger's eyes, was intoxicating. I was so caught up in the fiction I was creating that I started to believe it myself. Then my phone buzzed. Amelia's story. The photo was a masterpiece of deception. The lighting was low, we were leaning close over the table, and I was smiling at Silas with an intimacy I usually reserved for Gabriel. Looking at it, even I felt a jolt. It looked real, too real. My heart hammered in my chest, a toxic cocktail of triumph and terror. He'll see this, I thought, a sick sense of victory washing over me. He has to react. I immediately started checking my phone every 5 minutes, expecting an angry, "Who is that guy?" text, a missed call, nothing. The silence from his end was a void, and I felt a desperate, panicked need to fill it with more noise, more performance. So I ordered another drink. I leaned in even closer to Silas, asking him more questions, making him laugh louder. A small, sane part of my brain was screaming at me to stop, to go home, to delete everything and beg for forgiveness for a crime I hadn't even been accused of yet. But the insecure, broken part of me, the part that was running the show, was high on the drama. The game was too addictive to quit, and I was determined to win. I wasn't just testing Gabriel anymore, I was testing the universe, daring it to punish me. I came home around 11, buzzing from the alcohol and the adrenaline. The apartment was quiet. Gabriel was sitting on the couch, not watching TV, just staring at the blank screen. The only light was from the lamp in the corner, casting long, menacing shadows across the room. This was it, the overture to the grand, dramatic opera I had been waiting for. I braced myself for the explosion, my heart pounding with a perverse sense of anticipation. But the explosion never came. He just looked up at me, and his face, it wasn't angry. It was worse. It was exhausted. It was the face of a man who had been carrying something heavy for a very long time and had just decided to put it down. "Hey," I said, my voice a little too bright, too fake. "Sorry I'm late, got caught up talking shop with Silas." I dropped my keys into the bowl by the door, the clatter echoing in the silence. He didn't respond for a long moment. Then he said, his voice completely flat, "Why, Sierra?" It wasn't the question I expected. I was prepared for "Who was that?" or "What were you doing?" Not this. Not this quiet, soul-deep question. "What do you mean?" I asked, already feeling the foundation of my elaborate lie begin to crumble. "I mean why?" he repeated, finally turning to look at me fully. And his eyes, God, his eyes. They were filled with a profound, bottomless disappointment. It wasn't the fiery jealousy I wanted. It was the cold, dead ash of trust that had been burned away. "Why O'Malley's? Why did you have Amelia post that photo? Why did you use that poor guy as a pawn? Why did you feel the need to do any of this?" My script was useless. All the lines I had rehearsed in my head, the tearful confessions, the dramatic declarations of love, they all shriveled up and died in the face of his devastating calm. "It was just a stupid test, Gabe," I stammered, the words sounding pathetic even to my own ears. I was insecure. I just wanted to see if you cared. He actually let out a short, bitter laugh. It was the cruelest sound I had ever heard. Cared, he said, standing up. I spent 3 years of my life showing you I cared. I learned to cook your mom's recipes. I sat through your weird black and white movies. I held you when you had nightmares about your ex. I built my entire world around you. And you thought the only way to measure that was with a cheap, manipulative game. He walked over to me, and for a second I thought he was going to hold me. Instead, he just looked down at me, his face a mask of sorrow. Love isn't a test, Serafina. Trust isn't something you verify. You didn't test me, you just showed me who you are. You showed me that you're willing to betray me and use an innocent person just to soothe your own ego. This isn't a game. This is about character. And then he delivered the final, fatal blow. And I can't be with someone who has a character like that. We're done. The word done hung in the air between us. It didn't feel real. It felt like a line from a movie, not something happening in my living room to my life. I was still operating on the assumption that this was part of the drama, the climactic fight before the passionate reunion. My brain couldn't process the finality in his voice. Done. What are you talking about, Gabe? Don't be so dramatic, I said, trying to force a laugh, trying to steer us back to the familiar script of a lover's quarrel. It was a mistake. A huge, stupid mistake. I'm sorry. I know you are, he said, and the lack of anger in his voice was terrifying. You're sorry you got caught. He walked past me into the bedroom, and I heard the sound of drawers opening. I followed him, my legs feeling like they were moving through water. He was pulling shirts from his closet, folding them with a calm, methodical precision. Gabriel, stop it. You're scaring me, I pleaded, my voice starting to crack. Let's just talk about this. We are talking, he said, not looking at me. I've been trying to talk to you for months, Sierra. Every time I tried to tell you how secure we were, you'd find a new insecurity. Every time I tried to reassure you, you'd move the goalposts. I'm done playing. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, a series of choices. He had a duffel bag on the bed and was filling it with his things. Toothbrush, deodorant, the charger for his phone. Each item he packed was a brick being removed from the foundation of my life. The panic finally hit me, a cold, tidal wave of it. This wasn't a performance anymore. This was real. I started to cry, then to beg. I threw every argument I had at him, from I can't live without you to you're throwing 3 years away over one stupid night. Nothing landed. He was a stone wall. The calm, patient Gabriel I knew was gone, replaced by this cold, efficient stranger. Within 20 minutes his bag was packed. He walked to the door, and I physically blocked his way, a sobbing, hysterical mess. Please, I begged, grabbing his arm. Please don't do this. He looked at my hand on his arm, then back at my face. His expression was just empty. It's already done, he said. He gently removed my hand, opened the door, and walked out. He didn't even look back. The sound of the door clicking shut was the loudest sound I had ever heard. My game was over. I had lost, and my prize was this deafening, crushing silence. The hours after he left are a blur of pure, animalistic panic. My world, once so stable and defined, had shrunk to the 4 walls of this apartment and the glowing screen of my phone. I sent him a novel-length text message, a chaotic jumble of apologies, excuses, and desperate pleas. I explained the trauma, my insecurities, how it was never about Sila's, only about him. I poured my entire pathetic, broken heart into that message, hitting send with a trembling finger. The little blue check marks appeared almost instantly. He read it, and then nothing. The blinking cursor in our chat window was a tiny, mocking heartbeat in an otherwise dead conversation. I called him, straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. After the 5th try, I realized he hadn't just ignored me. He had blocked my number. The finality of it was a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. I switched to Instagram, my fingers fumbling. I sent him a DM. I saw him active, his little green dot a beacon of false hope. I watched in real time as my message went from sent to seen. Then his profile picture vanished, replaced by the generic gray avatar. Blocked, Facebook, same story. WhatsApp, blocked. He was methodically, surgically removing me from his digital life, severing every possible connection with the same chilling efficiency he'd packed his bag. It was a digital amputation. The next morning, I called in sick to work, my voice a raw croak. I couldn't face anyone, least of all Sela's. But desperation is a stronger force than shame. Around noon, fueled by a sleepless night and 3 cups of coffee, I drove to his apartment building, a place I only knew from a single work event. I sat in my car for an hour, rehearsing what I would say, a frantic monologue of self-flagellation and apologies. When I finally got up the nerve to buzz his unit, his voice came through the speaker, wary and confused. "Serafina, what are you doing here?" "Silas, I am so sorry," I sobbed into the intercom, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Last night it wasn't real. None of it was real. I was just using you to make Gabriel jealous, and he left me and I'm so sorry. I'm a terrible person, I know. But I just thought if you knew." There was a long, dead silence on the other end. I could almost hear him processing the sheer toxicity of what I just admitted. Then he said, his voice laced with a mixture of pity and disgust, "So you lied to me, used me to play a game with your boyfriend, and now that you've lost, you're showing up at my home. Serafina, please, just leave me out of this. Don't contact me again." The intercom clicked off. I stood there on the pavement, completely and utterly alone. I had managed to alienate the man I loved and humiliate the man I had used in the span of 12 hours. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was a pariah of my own making. I had set a fire to see if my partner would rush in to save me, and instead, he had simply walked out of the burning building and left me to choke on the smoke. I was the architect of my own desolate island.